the most important fact that whoever is looking at this ought to know is that 7 corporations, this is a fact that should be written across the foreheads of everybody. 7 corporations in the world now own 70% of the media in the world. 7 corporations own 70% of the media. Now, I'm not speaking about television. It's television, broadcast television, plus satellite television, plus cable television, plus radio, plus newspapers, magazines, and book publishing, plus film production, film distribution, and theaters, plus billboards, plus internet hookups. 7 corporations. Those corporations are Fox News, Disney, and Time Warner. They own 50% of the 70%. The other ones are Sony, Bertelsmann, Viacom, General Electric, and Seagram's is very, very close. They keep varying, but there's 8 that own a little bit more than 70. But I mean, as a raw number, 7 corporations own 70% of all global media in the whole world. Now, that's a degree of concentration that's similar to the oil industry, except with oil, it's sort of a thing. It's a industrial product. With media, it's consciousness. You're dealing with consciousness. So 7 corporations are basically talking to, effectively, the whole world. And all the other corporations are not part of the 7. It's not that they're doing something different. They're doing the same. They're doing the same. They're just not quite as big as these 7 are. They're all talking in exactly the same language. They're all telling people exactly the same values. They operate within a range. I mean, Fox is a little more to the right than some of the other ones are, but Time Warner maybe is 1 degree to the left of Fox. You know, but basically within a very, very narrow range, they're all exactly alike in terms of the values that they carry and the kind of information that they want to do. And they're all operating on the principles of profit. So they'll only do things that are profitable, and they'll only do things that advertisers want to pay for, and that advertisers will finance through their payments. Now, another important statistic, is in the United States, in most of the world, in the great majority of countries of the world, including most of Western Europe, but also the Third World, the average person in almost every country is watching more or less 4 hours of television per day. It varies from country to country. 4 hours per day, that's the average person. Children are watching almost that much. That means half the people are watching more than 4 hours per day. This is a level of immersion that means they spend more time watching television than they do anything besides sleeping and working and going to school. Television is the main thing people on the planet do now. Television watching is sort of the main activity on the planet. And one more statistic, I could do statistics all day, but one more statistic is that the average person in the United States, this does vary depending on what like in England, you have less commercial television than you do in the States. But in the United States, the average person is watching 30,000 commercials per year. The average person sees 30,000 repetitions of exactly the same thing. Now, some things say cars, and others say toothpaste, and others say whatever, cosmetics, others say cough syrup. They're all saying, go out and buy this thing. This is what you need. This is what's going to make you feel better, and this is what can make you happier. It's going to make you better looking. It's going to impress your friends. It's going to be the thing that's going to make the world better for you. You're going to have a better life if you do this. They all say that. And you're supposed to look this way rather than that way, and you're supposed to smile this way instead of that way. You're supposed to wear your hair this way instead of that way. And if you want to be popular, if you want to be healthy, if you want to be happy, just do this 30,000 times. Now, that's a level of speak through into the brains of people from these very few corporations through the most powerful process of image implantation, and I could talk for a long time as an advertising person of how that works, of how the images go in, and once they're in, they stay in. People don't know how many commercial images they're carrying around in their brains. And the power of those images is immense. And the power to turn people into the consciousness that the image represents is just gigantic. And that's why the system is all revved up with the standard of buying stuff is the most important thing, and why everyone's kept on the wheel of consumption, and that's the basis of the system, because the system is geared. We started out talking about hyper-growth. I mean, it's all a piece. You set the rules of globalization to aid corporate activity to achieve hyper-growth in terms of what kinds of investments are favored, what kinds of rules of behavior are favored. But then you also have changed people. You have to, it's not only the rules, it's what people carry around inside themselves that matters. They have to match. They have to match. The consciousness of people has to match the mechanisms, the technologies, and the corporate actors and the rules. All of that has to be one piece. So it's a highly integrated ecology, you might say, of systems which are all designed for maximization of corporate growth as the primary value, primary standard, and primary object of the entire system that's been planned around us. Now, why should corporations, I mean, can anybody imagine that there might be a society that's organized without corporations and without this? Of course, there have been societies for thousands of years which didn't have corporations at all. Corporations were just barely invented in the 1800s. I mean, the early 1800s is the only time. They didn't really catch on until around 1900 or late 1800s. And they didn't get the kind of power that they have now until only after the Second World War. In fact, more recently than that, over the last 20, 30 years, since the 60s, I would say, is when corporate activity really, really revved up. And you had a kind of takeover to a much higher degree of corporate activity than you had before. But to the point where right now, corporations are the system. When you speak of what's the organizing system of society, wherever we are in the world today, it's global corporations, and it's the market economy. You know, it's the idea that corporations are the main organizing principle of society right now. They do it through the rules, and they do it through speaking through to the brain.